How one Scottish immigrant with little formal education became one of the richest men in the world. In today's video, we'll explore how one Scottish immigrant who only had just 5 years of formal education would scale up from poverty to the status of the richest man in the world. By the end of the 19th century, the richest man in the world was this young Scottish boy by the name of Andrew Carnegie, whose giant business empire rested on the Carnegie Steel Company of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Early life. Andrew Carnegie, whose life became a rags to riches story, was one of the richest American industrialists in history, but he was born in Dunfermline, Scotland. He was born November 25, 1835, to Will, a handloom weaver, and Margaret, who did some sewing work for local shoemakers. This was until the steam-powered loom came into the picture. With weaving technology rapidly improving, his father's loom business would crumble, finding himself at a disadvantage by the Industrial Revolution. The young Carnegie was impacted profoundly as he watched his father suffer as he begged for work in 1848. To escape poverty in Scotland, the Carnegies sold their possessions and borrowed a sum of £20 from one George Lauder Sr. and immigrated to the land of opportunities, America, when Andrew was only 13 years old. They soon settled in their new home and restarted their lives in Pittsburgh. However, the family still experienced hardships as his parents struggled to make ends meet. This left Andrew no choice but to start out as a bobbin boy in a cotton factory to support his family. He would eventually find employment as a telegraph messenger boy at the Ohio Telegraph Company's Pittsburgh office in 1849, earning $2.50 per week. The young Carnegie worked hard and would learn all the business addresses in Pittsburgh as well as the names and faces of influential folks. He did this so he could identify them while they weren't at work. He would hone his telegraphed abilities at age 17. He had exceptional Morse code listening skills and was able to recall messages verbatim without having to write them down. Thomas Scott, a regional manager for the Pennsylvania Railroad firm, took notice of this, and at a time when the Pennsylvania Railroad Company was the biggest company in the world, engaged Carnegie to be his telegrapher and private secretary for the sum of £35 per month. The business-minded Carnegie had a first-hand view of how to manage a successful company. Thomas Scott, Carnegie's boss, opted to mentor him after quickly recognizing his ability. Later, it would be Tom's recommendation to buy stocks that gave Carnegie his first experience with capitalism. Andrew Carnegie was selected for the Army during the American Civil War. However, as was customary at the time, he paid another man $850 to report for duty in his stead. Carnegie observed that during this period the military could easily set fire to the wooden bridges and that iron bridges were desperately needed to replace them. He took advantage of the chance and established the Keystone Bridge Company. However, it was his subsequent action that cemented his reputation as a savvy businessman. In addition to building bridges, Keystone also had its own iron mills, which supplied the iron required to build the bridges. Since they controlled the iron supply, Carnegie's bridge-building business was not reliant on mining or extraction firms like its rivals. This increased Carnegie's margins while also giving them more control over the entire process. He basically ran 3 businesses, each strengthening the others. First, a mining extraction company. Second, a bridge building company that used the iron supplied by his mining company. And finally, once the bridge was built, his third business would monetize by selling rail. The concept worked exactly as planned, and he was always on the lookout for the next big opportunity. Andrew focused on New York City, the undeniable business hub of the world. He was disappointed to see a culture of hustling rather than mingling with other notable businessmen as he had anticipated. He would call the people around him who were rich scoundrels. When Carnegie turned 35, he made a promise to himself in a letter that he would retire and concentrate on improving the world. However, Carnegie never followed through on this promise. Before we look at the turning point in Carnegie's life, if this is your first time on the channel, thank you. Also, please, we request that you subscribe by hitting, as this helps us gauge the interest and guides us in creating similar videos. Thank you very much. Industrialization. The Bessemer method, which enabled the high carbon content of pig iron to be burned away in a regulated and quick manner during steel manufacturing, was one of Carnegie's first significant breakthroughs and helped him make his fortune in the steel industry. This paved the path for the manufacture of substantial steel structures, making the construction of buildings like skyscrapers finally possible. Carnegie built the first steel facilities in America with lightning-fast efficiency. He did this by employing the top architects and engineers money could buy. Utilizing the most up-to-date technologies, he concentrated on increasing productivity while pushing his staff to the limit of their physical and mental ability. The pursuit of efficiency by Carnegie resulted in violent altercation at Homestead. Henry Clay Frick, the supervisor of the Carnegie Steel Company, attempted to reduce workers' pay during contract negotiations in 1892, claiming that higher productivity had raised wages. Following the tragic strike, Carnegie's employees will return to work under the same safety standards but with reduced pay and longer hours. The fame of Carnegie was a further secondary effect of Homestead. Prior to the Homestead disasters, he frequently spoke out in favor of improved working conditions and higher pay at steel mills. But his words and deeds were very different. He advocated for more compensation and safer working conditions while decreasing labor costs by slashing payments and doing little to nothing to make his plants safer. For using Frick as his scapegoat for the catastrophe as well as for all the other shady activities that he didn't want his name to be associated with, Carnegie was widely criticized as being cowardly, but despite the conflicts that arose, the steel factories kept thriving. The firm would produce more steel by 1900 than all of Great Britain combined. However, Carnegie became weary of the game in 1901 and preferred to spend time with his wife and daughter. As he approached 70, Carnegie grew receptive to the idea of selling the business he had devoted his entire life to founding. According to legend, Carnegie jotted his offer down on a scrap of paper, and Morgan received it via Carnegie Steel president Charles Schwab. J.P. Morgan gave the offer a quick glance before accepting it. For $48 million, Morgan acquired Carnegie Steel, making Carnegie the world's richest individual at the time. Carnegie would fully sever all links to his professional life and devote himself entirely to philanthropic service to the globe. Carnegie's belief. When Carnegie accumulated great wealth in a hurry, people started suspecting something wrong. Andrew Carnegie always stressed the importance of a focused and attentive mind. Napoleon Hill, a great journalist while he was being coached by Andrew Carnegie, learned the power of the mind. Philanthropy. In his later years, Carnegie focused on philanthropy. From 1901 onward, the focus of the public's interest shifted from Carnegie's cunning commercial acumen, which had allowed him to amass such a fortune, to the public-spirited manner in which he dedicated himself to using on charitable endeavors. The remainder of Carnegie's life was devoted to raising money for the public good, as well as promoting improvements in social and educational conditions. Thank you very much for watching Millionaire's Business Wealth Secrets YouTube channel, sharing stories that transform. Bye for now.